Hi, I'm Wendy Bounds, anchor for WSJ Live and former small business editor here at the Wall Street Journal. Welcome back to WSJ Startup of the Year, the Wall Street Journal's interactive online documentary series tracking dynamic CEOs and their stories of startup to success. Now, we started with 24 innovative companies, and now we are down to our final 3. We have flown them in to our New York City studios for their 5th and their final task in the series, a debate in which each entrepreneur will have the opportunity to convince WSJ editors why his or her company should be named Startup of the Year. We have Catherine Minshew from the Muse, an online career development site, and Allison Sawyer from Rebellion Photonics, which makes specialized equipment to detect gas leaks, and Mert Isery from SwipeSense, a technologically advanced hand hygiene system. Congratulations to all of you for making it to the final 3.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's get right down to business. We're going to have 3 parts to this debate. First, each of you will have 1 minute to tell us why your company should be named WSJ Startup of the Year over and beyond the other 2 contenders. Good luck to all 3 of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Catherine, you are up first. Why should you be named Startup of the Year specifically over these 2?
Yeah, so we are the Muse, and as you said, we help take the agony out of job search and inspire people's career. We have currently around 1 million people a month that are coming to the site to explore job opportunities. They're learning core skills like negotiation, Microsoft Excel, public speaking, or peeking inside the offices of companies. And I think that we really have the potential to make a massive impact, not just in the US, but at a global level. When you look right now in the United States, there are about 153 million people who are employed. And recent statistics show that 70% of them are unengaged with their jobs. They're disengaged at work. Now, some of us have been in a job we hate, and we know the impact that that can make. I think that having a difference in the day-to-day lives of hundreds of millions of Americans and people internationally is something that's very, very much needed right now as the labor market changes, and I think it's one of the reasons why the scale of that impact means we can be the Wall Street Journal Startup of the Year.
You say massive impact, though, but why more impact over companies that are trying to potentially save people's lives?
Exactly. I think saving lives is really important, and honestly, I'm incredibly glad that both of these companies are in the market. I think you can't argue that they're doing really incredible work. That said, I was recently reading about the glass doors that were installed at subways that make sure people don't fall onto the tracks. Those are saving tens of thousands of lives globally. It's an incredible impact. It's very, very important. It doesn't necessarily mean, I think, that at that scale, you're seeing something that should be the innovation, the Startup of the Year.
All right. Allison Mert, you heard her. Allison, you're up.
Hi, I'm Allison Sawyer, CEO of Rebellion Photonics. And at Rebellion Photonics, we have truly revolutionary optics. Our cameras actually see gas leaks before they cause explosions or become emissions. We're a later stage startup, and we're set to really revolutionize oil and gas industry. Now, why over our competitors should we be named Startup of the Year? Well, I love both of these guys and their passion. I believe in their needs, but I believe the Startup of the Year competition was set out with multiple tasks to show you need the product, you need a clearly defined need, you need a business model that'll match, and that's where we check all the boxes, and that's where we really have come and ready to launch into a really huge company. Where while my competitors, I think they will be successful someday, there's still some pivoting they're going to need to do to get there.
All right, Mert, you heard it. You get the final word here. Don't tell me you love them. You don't love them. You want to be Startup of the Year. Tell us why.
Well, every year, hospital-acquired infections kill 100,000 Americans. And according to the CDC, the best way to prevent those infections is to increase hand hygiene among healthcare workers. SwipeSense is the only solution that combines the convenience of a portable dispenser with the power of real-time data. We're young, we're ambitious, we're extremely passionate about our technology, but those aren't the reasons why we should win this competition. SwipeSense should win because Blue Cross Blue Shield, one of our key strategic partners, is also one of our biggest investors. SwipeSense should win because in the past 4 months alone, we've signed 11 of the leading medical centers in the United States to use our product. And finally, the most important reason, SwipeSense should win because our success is a matter of life and death for 100,000 Americans every single year.
And what do you have over the life and death over her company?
Well, in the videos that I've seen Allison speak, according to gas explosions, about 130 individuals unfortunately lose their lives. Obviously, that's a very, very sad thing to happen to anyone. However, hospital-acquired infections infect 1 out of 20 hospitalized patients in the United States. We all know people that have been to hospitals. People go to hospitals all the time, and it's a very real threat that impacts the lives of hundreds of thousands of people.
All right.
Yeah, but it's not just hand washing. I mean, we're in the medical center of America, so it was easy for me to go talk to people about this issue. And it's not just hand washing, though. The big thing really is all the surfaces. Just like on an airplane, that's why you're getting sick. It's you're touching the surfaces. So to have a really well-rounded solution that's really going to, like you say, save the hundreds of thousands of lives. And I think you can do that. I'm still optimistic you can take this space, but I wonder if it's just by changing your business model and running it as a service, for example. But
Part 2, that is where you get to go at it. Good job, guys. We like all your answers. You're all ready. No one threw anything. So we're going to wait till part 2 for that.
Yeah.
That's right. Good answers, guys. Entrepreneurs, now each of you will get a chance to grill the other 2 CEOs on their companies. This is where it gets good, folks. Feel free to probe their perceived weaknesses or perhaps business model strategies you might have some doubts about. So, Mert, this time we're going to start with you. I want to know, first off, what would you like to ask the Muse?
Catherine, besides comments and anecdotal evidence that show people truly get the careers of their lives through your site, what evidence do you have that demonstrates scientifically that you truly are the future of career?
And that's a really interesting question. Obviously, we've tried to make sure we're not just going off of the user emails we get every day or the comments we get on the site to make sure we're making a real impact. There's a couple things we look at. One, as I said earlier, we reach about 1 million people a month. That's entirely organic. We started and had 20,000 people in the first month, and it's spread by word of mouth, by people telling their friends and sharing beyond that. This is a place you have to go. This is making a difference in my life. And I think the growth numbers, when you see them, when you look at the sources and the channels they're going through, demonstrate that people are really finding value. We also talk to the companies. We're working with about 130 companies across the US, from small startups to Fortune 500 companies. They're paying us pretty substantial amounts of money every month, and they're renewing again. And when we survey them and talk to them across the board, they're telling us statistics on how many applications, what those hires look like, whether those hires are more likely to stay long term, whether they're churning, and things like that. And as we're building out a picture, which we ideally are using then to close more clients, we're seeing a very, very clear pattern that the hires that come through the Muse, the people that come through the Muse, are actually getting what they're coming to us for.
Mert, what do you think? You buying that?
Do you have any numbers you're comfortable sharing with us in the sense that people who get a job through the Muse end up staying for longer with the company, or they're satisfied with lower salaries because they like the company so much? Do you have any specific examples that you can point to?
So we're a 14-person company. We haven't run a statistical survey like that, although believe me, I would very, very much like to. We have a survey out right now, actually, which we've gotten about 50% of the responses back, and we're definitely seeing a very clear trend, but I'd want to obviously see everything. We also have talked a little bit about, at what point do you really invest in bringing in a third party, because we can do all the surveys we want, but again, I think people do vote with their wallets in this space. There's a lot of small competitors. You've obviously got big giants, and the fact that we're consistently able to steal budget from them again and again and again, and eyeballs on the user side, to me is pretty convincing proof that we are onto something, and we're growing it as fast as we can.
Thank you.
Mert, turn your laser-like focus to Allison. Dig in.
Absolutely. Allison, I have no doubt that the science behind Rebellion Photonics is sound, and the claims that you're making in the oil and gas industry are field-proof.
you're welcome to come by for a demo. I need
Not necessarily. I've looked at the company. It looks fantastic.
Okay.
However, given that you guys have been working on this for the past 4 years, what do you think truly has prevented you guys? What do you think has been the biggest barrier that prevented you guys from gaining significant market traction? Again, given that you've been working on this for 4 years.
No, I'm so glad you asked that. And I think what's different with our hardware company is really what separates the boys from the men. Our hardware company is true hard tech, true breakthroughs in science. We didn't just come from a business school idea. We came from deep in the labs of NIH health systems. We've had over $4 million go into the research and development of this product. And yes, I am proud to say it took us 3.5 years, and that was lightning speed. When you make true innovations in science and then carry that from proof of concept out into a full-scale operation in a refinery, just so you know, in this space, 3.5 years is blazing.
But to be honest with you, 3.5 years is how long you've been operational. The research of your CTO, your co-founder, has been going on long before that, given that he's truly a researcher and this is a university-developed research.
I am absolutely proud it took so long. It took long time to do and so much money because true innovations take that long. It also speaks to the barriers of entry in this space. It took us a long time and we are a physics powerhouse. It's going to take our competitors just as long. So what you're saying just says to me our runway, as I call it, where we're going to be really owning this space, is just clearly going to be at least 3 years. Where I wonder with if in your company the technology innovation is as durable.
We're going to get to that question in just a moment, and the technology and the science. And Allison, take a breath with Mert for just a minute. You guys are doing good. No one's breaking it. You break a little sweat. There might be a little sweat here. I want you to turn first to Catherine and ask her toughest question you've got for the Muse.
I'm so pleased to meet another female CEO co-founder, and I love to see the videos when you pitch. I love the light that comes in your eyes when you talk about it, and you really do express a boldness that I just love, and I'm so excited to have a fellow CEO. And then I actually got down to business and actually looked at your website, and I was shocked. I was shocked that that was your website. This bold, really like a rebellious woman who I would love to get to know better, by the way. And then this was your website. There were cooking recipes and lots of nonsense. And when I see you pitch and your eyes light up, you get excited about those videos. And I can see you. I can see you. You were at Ivy League. You did everything right. You went to your fancy consulting job and you hated it. You hated it and you were daydreaming, and you're a visual person, I'm going to assume, and you wanted to see videos. So my question is, why is your website not as clean and bold as you are? Why is it not just the videos? And there are different ways to do that, and you can have an advanced search button and you could go through it, but why is it not? It looks like it was designed by a committee, and it doesn't look like it was designed by you, and I mean that as a compliment.
All right, Catherine, she's thrown down the gauntlet.
Yeah, and what's been interesting about the evolution of the Muse over the last couple of years is the ways that people have used our product that we didn't necessarily dream of in the beginning. When we first launched the company, those 20,000 users who came in the first month were primarily women in their 20s. And as word spread and as people started using different parts of the site, we started having these different demographics that were asking things and taking parts of the site and making them their own. So we have stay-at-home moms and dads who are using the site to get back into the workforce. We have vets that are getting back into a civilian career. And we also have people who have come and found us when they're not necessarily looking for a job, but they want that smart work-related content. You could call this the BuzzFeed defense. There's a reason that people like cat pictures on BuzzFeed. And for us, 95% of the traffic on the site is to job search, management, leadership-related content, but it doesn't mean that it's not fun for us. And I think for me personally, to sometimes also say, here are 11 things we wish had ended instead of Breaking Bad, or here are 5 recipes that you can take to work for lunch. That content doesn't necessarily have the appeal to every single person, but it does mean that people are coming on a daily basis, even when they're not changing jobs or they're not asking for promotion or negotiating a raise, because there's something new work-related every single day.
So Alice, that's a fair point. I mean, you want to keep people on your site and interesting content, cat photos, whatever it might take, you might do it. What's your response?
There are great content websites where they just puke out content, and that does well, Huffington Post, but I don't think that's the kind of company you want. Mm-hmm. I think you want a mega company. I don't think you left the fancy job to do a little 1 million, or maybe 2, maybe you'll hit 10, I don't know. I don't think that's what you left for. I would think you wanted to be in the big leagues. And when you look at the websites that are really the big leagues, they are so brutally simple and addictive, and they do one thing. Mm-hmm. They do one thing. And I know you got it in you, and I would just love to see you just take a knife to your website and make it just the one thing you're selling.
Kind of the velvet hammer over here. All right, let's turn back to Mert. All right, your question for him.
Oh, okay, yes. I love your all's passion for your market. I think there needs to be some real innovation in your market, and I love that you guys took the chance. And I know how difficult it can be being a young founder. So just my hat's off to you. I mean, I know you probably have some stories to tell.
Thank you.
And I just was wondering, you know deep down it's going to be nearly impossible to take GE and the inventors of Purell and their company head on in technical innovation. You know this deep down. So what I want to know, have you considered other business models where the innovation there could take you? For example, have you considered your company turning into more a service company where you're doing profit sharing with the hospitals, and then the technology risk goes down because you can use yours, you can use somebody else's, and then the adoption risk goes down, which are two of your biggest risks. So have you considered maybe putting down the hardware innovation and really focusing on business model innovation, where you could have a longer runway and a clearer exit strategy?
That's specifically what we're working towards with Blue Cross Blue Shield. So when people hear hand hygiene, immediately they think of Purell, they think of alcohol hand sanitizer, or they think soap and sink. What we see when we look at hand hygiene is we see hospital-acquired infections. And to date, the biggest people who get impacted financially from hospital-acquired infections is not the hospitals. They're only part of the financial victim here. The biggest victim is the Medicare, Medicaid, the private insurance companies. And our partnership with Blue Cross Blue Shield speaks to the fact that we are investigating these business models. And Blue Cross Blue Shield believes in us because they have led our investment round. So it's absolutely something within our pipeline. But the current stage of where we're at, not only we're investigating the different business models that can sustain us long time, we just want to make the case for hospitals themselves to buy the product in the first place, of which they're doing.
So you haven't narrowed down a business model yet?
Currently, the business model is working by direct sales to hospitals. Hospitals
So you're
are
doing
buying our
direct
solution.
hardware sales.
We give away our hardware for hospitals,
Okay.
and we have a yearly subscription fee to access our data. We make our money both from the software as a service,
so like
but also
GE
the
Healthcare
cartridges
and-
that we sell through our dispensers.
Okay, so like your competitors. I just think it's going to be a really interesting time with healthcare, with Obamacare, and you could do some very interesting things there, which would, I think, be very exciting.
Absolutely
All
agree.
right, don't get too cozy, guys. No smiling at each other. You're not off the hook yet because Catherine has been very patient over here. Your turn. First to SwipeSense. Your question.
Right. So, I definitely think it's interesting. I like how you mentioned that Blue Cross Blue Shield is both a customer and ledger investment round. We actually have a number of our customers that have come and asked and now are investing as well.
Congrats.
CEOs of the companies that we work with, which is always a great thing. So my question for you, really, I want to dig in more to how your product really differs from your competitors and whether it actually is solving, for example, the transmission of MRSA. Because from what I've seen so far, at least, it seems like the 100,000 deaths a year are primarily caused by things that so far your product isn't necessarily able to make a big dent in.
There are a number of questions in what you prevailed. The first one is, what percentage of infections are prevented by alcohol hand sanitizer? According to the CDC and the report that was released in 2002, alcohol-based hand sanitizer is the gold standard in hand hygiene, and it prevents 99.9% of the infections that occur in hospitals. The infections that alcohol-based hand sanitizers don't prevent is actually not MRSA, it's C. diff, Clostridium difficile, which is a spore-based infection. Now, those spore-based infections are prevented by use of soap and sink, which our technology also has the ability to track. So, in terms of our ability to prevent infections, hand hygiene is the link between hand hygiene and infections have been set for decades, and it's there to stay. Now, in terms of how we're differentiated from our competitors, SwipeSense is the only hand hygiene monitoring system that only takes a snapshot and develops trends of hand hygiene behavior, but also empowers healthcare workers with a tool to do hand hygiene on the go. So it's not just we report you're doing not so good today, we actually give them the tool to make the right choice, the easiest thing to do. And we're the only company that can do that.
It just seems funny for me that, you've got doctors who are some of obviously the most educated people in America, and you're talking about empowering them to make the right choice, which is hand sanitizer, and that's great. I think that it is obviously anything is valuable, which is encouraging doctors to use Purell or your product or wash their hands more. But I guess I'm not seeing the kind of massive shift here that that we would look for in a company that's going to really change the face of healthcare.
The average hand hygiene compliance in the United States today is 40%. Now, we can look at this and say this is an education problem, or doctors really know that this is a problem. I can assure you that every single healthcare worker who's thoroughly trained in a hospital knows that hand hygiene is absolutely crucial, and they have to do it. But they have to do this 100, 150 times a day. So it's something that's very, very easy in the thick of things to just simply skip. When you're right by a patient's side and when you're changing the IV line, it's very difficult to stop what you're doing, go all the way outside, perform hand hygiene, and come back. And SwipeSense is the tool that allows them to do it right then and there. It makes hand hygiene a habit rather than a task that they have to accomplish.
Mark, let me jump in here because you're saying doing it right there, but one thing we've heard around the newsroom here, people are questioning the size of the device and how many doctors, one, how do you make doctors do anything in a hospital? And two, isn't something as big as a mouse weighing you down when you've already got other things on your chest just a nuisance to them in itself?
The SwipeSense devices weigh around an ounce. And from the get-go, you're absolutely right. Real estate on a healthcare worker is extremely valuable property. It's extremely difficult to get someone to say, hey, you should use this on top of every single 50 things that you have to carry around. The stethoscope, the pen and paper, the gloves, everything, the whole shebang. However, the volunteer adoption rate in our current installations is about 70%. People choose to use SwipeSense because it simply saves those 4 to 5 steps per patient visit. And in a busy nurses, in a busy doctor's day, that can mean minutes, that adds up to hours over the course of weeks.
Do you think you can get the device smaller? Do you think you can get the size of it down?
This was a big design question in our early development phase, and what we've decided on was basically a difference of this. If we make the device bigger, they have to recharge it less, they have to carry, they can carry more gel around them. However, we have a lower adoption rate because it's a bigger device. If you make it smaller, you get the inconvenience of having to replace cartridges all the time. And we basically settled on a number that we have found that an average nurse goes through in a day, and that's 40 milliliters.
All right.
But are you the only people that can make this device?
The smart portable dispenser, absolutely yes.
For how long?
For 17 years, because we have our patent applications in.
We both heavy sigh you.
There's some heavy sighing going on there. All right, Allison, we can't let you off the hook altogether. Catherine, you've got a question for her, I'm sure, teed up.
Exactly. I think that my question is actually along some of the same themes. I think that you were talking earlier about the time it took to develop this technology, the fact that it's it's very, very unique and groundbreaking in the oil and gas market. But you're talking about a market with obviously some pretty entrenched players, and you mentioned earlier this sort of 3.5 year lead time towards anyone else developing something similar. And my question is really, ultimately in this industry, how big can this actually get? And if it's going to, as you start to raise money, what's to stop some of these other players for saying, great, you can own the market for 3.5 years, and then I'm going to come in and take it from you?
Ooh, you talk very fast.
Always.
Let me see. So you had questions about market size. You had questions about our runway, I think, before other competitors get in this space, especially once they see the big market size. I'll just do you get 2. So market size. Let's see, there's over 10,000 petrochemical sites in the United States alone. They'll need anywhere from 1 to 50 cameras depending on the size. You can get little pipelines that just need 1, or you can get mega villages like the Exxon Baytown refinery. We're going to need 50. So you do that market size, it's bigger than I can do in this lifetime. We will not run out of market size while I walk this earth. Now, as far as technology runway, I kind of got lucky because he set me up earlier with that. So there's how much money it takes. Optics is a very specialized field. But I think another thing we've tried to encompass ourselves in is how we picked our business model. You can't really just sell hardware because what are they going to do with hyperspectral data? So then you have to do software. And then actually it formed into an IT system where we're really giving our rigs and refineries a new operational tool, a new form of information. And so when we install, we set up our IT systems, there are really high switching costs once you're installed at rigs and refineries. So the first 3 years is pure tech, keeping us safe, maybe longer. And then beyond that, the high switching costs. Now, we are taking this seriously, though, and that is why I'm doing a very large round right now, a $10 million fundraising round. And that's why I want to make the absolute most of these next 3 years. And I'm also hoping we win Startup of the Year, which will really help with marketing.
Catherine, any follow-up from that?
I just think, a $10 million round is great and it's very impressive for a startup, but I still think when you look at, the fact that there is this technology that has I guess my fear for you is that as larger players in the space see what you've done, that you'll lose that first mover advantage and that $10 million won't necessarily be enough to make the difference.
Yeah, I think, when the Honeywell and Halliburton look at us, they see how large and profitable the market is. Without a doubt, they will want a piece. I think they will try for 6 months to the year, and then I think they will call me with an excellent acquisition offer.
All right, guys, good questions, all of you. Some tough questions. One question you each didn't know you were going to be asked is this, and we're going to do this before we move on. Catherine, if you had to pick one of these two, if you were not named Startup of the Year, which of them would you pick?
That is a very challenging question.
There's only two.
Well, luckily, exactly, because otherwise I might be up here for an hour. But I think right now, if I had to say invest my own money,
right.
I would probably put it in Rebellion Photonics.
All right, Rebellion Photonics, same question to you.
You did surprise us with this.
I did.
I think it's very difficult. I'm very excited when I saw their names on here. They say you want to invest in an A team, not just an A product.
You like baseball. Which of these two can hit it out of the park? Which is going to go for the home run
They're
like you
both going to
wanted
be successful eventually. I really do believe that. I'm just a huge fan of Catherine's. It's just personal.
So it's personal, not based on the business model.
I don't know him. So I choose.
All right,
teams.
your money's going in the Muse. Mert?
When we were doing research preparing for this debate, we had to research extensively both of the businesses. So I actually know the answer to this question. It is Rebellion Photonics. They have a sound scientific product, and it seems like it's going to work, and we believe in science.
All right, guys, you handled that curveball well. Thanks for doing that. All right, we are down to the wire now with the very last portion of our debate. Each of the three finalists is now going to have 1 minute to sum up and prove to WSJ editors why they should be named WSJ Startup of the Year. Now, this time, we're going to mix it up just a little bit by having all of you pick one of the three cards out of my hands. Now, the person who gets the ace chooses if he or she wants to go first, second, or last. And the person with the 2 of hearts card, they get to choose from the remaining 2 spots. The person with the 3 of hearts, well, you get the 1 slot that is left. All right, Catherine, you are first. Do not show your cards until everyone has picked. Allison, there you go, Mert. On the count of 3, let's have the big reveal. 1, 2, 3, flip them. And Mert, the lucky man with the ace.
I would like to go last.
You would like to go last. Catherine, you get second choice. No, Allison, you get second choice.
Okay. I will go first.
And
Great.
we know what that means.
And I'll take the middle.
All right, guys, let's go. All right, Allison, you pick number 1. You might be regretting. You have a little buyer's remorse on that. But you can do it. Let's go.
Okay. Well, Rebellion Photonics started 4 years ago in a lab. Well, technically the student bar. And we had nothing more than idea. 4 years later, we went from proof of concept to cameras installed in refineries with a clean business model, a very focused product, and an answer to a problem that has plagued an industry for 100 years. You can't fix a gas leak if you can't see it. Our 2 competitors today are excellent. They're wonderful entrepreneurs, and they will be successful someday. But we're successful today, and that's why we should be Startup of the Year.
All right. Catherine?
All right, I guess it's my turn next. I think it's been really interesting going through this process, learning a little bit more about the other companies, and ultimately I think all 3 of the ideas up here have legs. I think they've got obviously market potential and hopefully a big future beyond this competition. But ultimately we were talking earlier about market size, and I think what you have is great technologies for a niche market. And we were talking earlier about acquisition versus IPO. We have already had a couple of offers for for very, very interesting acquisitions. But I think when you look at the state of the career landscape today, the number of people dissatisfied in their jobs, the shortening time between each change, and the potential to engage people in between each job transition as they're getting a promotion or negotiating a raise or asking for management, the potential is really tremendous. We are also not just an idea. We have a massive amount of revenue, which I'm not allowed to disclose, but is growing by 50% month over month in the last couple of months. We serve 1 million people a year, 100 plus companies, 10 national publishing partners, 400 career experts, and I think we've got the global scale and also the massive IPO potential to be the Wall Street Journal Startup of the Year.
Thanks, Catherine. Mert, the final word of Startup of the Year series goes to you.
The fact that all three of us have made it this far speaks volumes about the effectiveness of our technologies, the traction of our businesses, and more importantly, our individual competence as leaders and as entrepreneurs who will move these ideas forward. But I believe that the question that we have to ask ourselves here today is not which one of these companies will be the biggest success story in their respective fields, because I sincerely believe all three of us will be. However, the question that we really ought to be asking us is, in our wildest dreams, what does our success mean for the greater society, for the world in large? In SwipeSense, this means that we will save 100,000 lives every single year. And we're on course to doing exactly that because we've proven unprecedented market traction along with scientifically proving that our technology works. And that's why SwipeSense should be Wall Street Journal's first Startup of the Year. Thank you.
Thanks to all of you. You're amazing. You were amazing on paper, and I'm even more impressed meeting you all in person. You did a great job, even with the curveballs that were thrown at you. And entrepreneurism is so important in this country. It's the foundation of business. So thank you for what you do. Well, that's it. That concludes the debate, the fifth and final task of the WSJ Startup of the Year series. And this was a tough task. They all made it through, and now the WSJ editors, they are going to have an even tougher task. I do not envy them, of deciding which of these guys is going to be inaugural Startup of the Year. We will also have WSJ Startup of the Year mentor Brian Cohen, chairman of New York Angels. He's going to weigh in with his remarks. And to those of you watching, we thank you so much for joining the debate and for joining us throughout this series. Find out which of our final three companies here today is named WSJ Startup of the Year on November 4th. I am Wendy Bounds for the Wall Street Journal. Thanks for being with us.